The shot rang out, not from a gun, but from the sharp click of a remote, as the gates to the massive Attawell estate closed behind him. For what seemed like the final time, Anthony Attawell took one last look at the empire he'd built. The world outside thought it had crumbled. The headlines screamed fraud, the accounts were frozen, and his name had become gossip column gold. But what no one knew was that it was all a lie, a meticulously planned illusion. This wasn't the story of a man who lost everything. This was the story of a man who gave it all up to find out who would stay when there was nothing left. Anthony Adewale was a billionaire in every sense of the word. Oil, tech, shipping. He had a hand in every profitable pie. His Abuja mansion stood on a hill like a monument to success, with 20 rooms, a private theater, and a marble driveway that could fit 10 cars. He had a beautiful wife, Veronica, 2 children, Caleb and Janelle, and enough staff to run a small hotel. Yet every night, Anthony sat alone in his study, surrounded by silence louder than the parties they threw. Veronica smiled only for events. Caleb barely passed university, though his expenses rivaled a politician's campaign. Janelle lived for social media, flaunting designer bags worth more than a teacher's annual salary. It was all an act. One night, after enduring his own birthday party like a hostage, Anthony poured a glass of untouched scotch and made a decision. He picked up his phone and called Marcus, his oldest friend. Marcus answered, surprised to hear the somber tone in Anthony's voice. Anthony spoke calmly, deliberately. He wanted to disappear. Marcus was confused at first. Disappear? As in leave? As in vanish? No more accounts, no more access, just me, Anthony said. There was a long silence on the line before Marcus responded. You're serious? Dead serious. Make it look like a scandal. Freeze the accounts. I need to see who's real. Marcus sighed, already anticipating the backlash. You'll lose them. If I do, Anthony replied firmly, they were never mine. And if they stay, then I'll know where to rebuild. Plans were made. Lawyers were discreetly instructed. The illusion was crafted. Within days, the house of cards began to collapse. The headlines came fast. Anthony Adewale, under fraud investigation, assets frozen, mansion to be seized. Panic consumed the Adewale household. Veronica screamed and fainted. Caleb locked himself away, frantically dialing old friends and new enemies alike. Janelle, furious and afraid, tried to flee the country until her platinum card was declined. Anthony called a family meeting in the living room and made a shocking announcement. They were leaving. He had secured a place in Makoko. Veronica's jaw dropped. Makoko? The floating slum? Yes, it's all we can afford now. Janelle stormed upstairs. Caleb punched a wall. Veronica collapsed onto the couch, sobbing, not for her husband, but for her lifestyle. The next morning, the family packed a few belongings into old suitcases. Their convoy was gone. There were no staff to help. A borrowed pickup truck driven by a silent friend of Marcus was all that remained. As they drove, the cityscape transformed. Sleek skyscrapers faded into rusted rooftops. Asphalt gave way to dirt, then to planks stretched over murky waters. Their mansion was a memory. Now, the illusion was gone. Their new home stood on stilts above the water, its wooden walls thin and stained. There was no air conditioning, no private chef. The family shared one fan, a creaky bed, and the sound of neighbors through the flimsy walls. Veronica refused to cook. She sat on a stool all day, fanning herself and cursing fate. Caleb wandered the alleys, trying to trade his expensive watch for quick cash. Janelle cried over her broken phone and swatted mosquitoes with designer rage. Only Lara, Anthony's orphan niece, seemed unaffected. She had been raised in the shadows of luxury, always quiet, always helpful. Now she swept the floor, cooked their meals, and fetched water without complaint. Neighbors watched with curiosity. Who were these city people trying to blend in? But Lara smiled at them. She lent a hand. She learned their names. One night, as Anthony sat outside, staring at the still water, Lara sat beside him. Uncle, she said softly, maybe this isn't the fall. Maybe it's the filter. Anthony turned to her. Filter? A fall breaks things. A filter shows what doesn't belong. Her words stayed with him. Weeks passed. The rhythm of the slum became their reality. Veronica began disappearing in the afternoons. She returned with new wrappers and the scent of foreign perfume. She claimed she was helping other women do laundry. Anthony watched but said nothing. Janelle found comfort in a floating bar run by a flashy club promoter. She came home with cheap gifts and smeared lipstick, lying about dance rehearsals. Caleb borrowed money from shady lenders. One night, angry men knocked on the shack's door. Their voices were loud, their threats louder. Anthony handed them the last stash of cash he'd hidden in a hollow floorboard. No one in the family said thank you, except Laura. She rubbed his aching feet. She brought him mangoes from the market. She whispered prayers before bed. One morning, Anthony finally asked, "Why do you still treat me like I'm the same man?" Laura's smile was gentle. "Because you are, just without the noise." 3 months later, Anthony picked up his phone and called Marcus. Release the assets. Within 24 hours, armored SUVs rolled into Makoko. Neighbors gasped. Children ran alongside the convoy. Word spread like wildfire. Anthony stood at the door of the shack, suitcase in hand. "I'm leaving," he told his family. "You're welcome to join me." Veronica scoffed. "And go back to your shame?" "Never." Janelle barely looked up from her phone. "I'm busy." Caleb hesitated. His lips parted, but his pride closed them again. Only Lara quietly walked to Anthony's side, her small bag in hand. Back at the hilltop mansion, the lights were on again. The marble glistened. The fountain danced. Anthony guided Lara through the hallways she had once cleaned in silence. "This is your home now," he told her. "You're the daughter I needed." Tears rolled down Lara's cheeks. "Uncle, you're the father I never had." Anthony reinstated only the staff who had asked about him during the scandal. His businesses reopened with new leadership. Loyal, ethical, proven. Weeks later, Caleb arrived in tattered clothes, desperation in his eyes. Anthony gave him a job, starting from the bottom. Janelle appeared in gossip magazines, involved in scandals that brought more shame than fame. Veronica became a story whispered in corners, the woman who lost it all. But Lara thrived. She enrolled in business school, founded a home for orphans, and accompanied Anthony to every board meeting. Where the others had failed the test, she had passed with grace. Moral lesson here: wealth is not in gold, but in gratitude. Love is not proven in light, it's revealed in darkness. And sometimes, to see who truly sees you, you must turn off the lights. Because the truth is this: only in darkness can you see who carries a flame.